let's get started. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate it. My name is Jeremy Stempien. I'm a detective with the Novi Police Department. Pretty much our nexus is all things financial crimes. So identity theft, credit card fraud, check fraud, scams, you name it. If it has anything to do with financial crimes, we look into those. Okay, so let's jump right in. So when we're talking about identity theft, that's when somebody is trying to obtain any good or service using your personal information. Your name, date of birth, and your social number. Okay. Now you'll see here, I do have the home address and email and phone number listed. That's not always necessary to open up an account in your name, but sometimes that helps to have that personal information. Your driver's license number, again, that's not always necessary, but it does help the bad person if they have your driver's license information. Bank account numbers and passwords. Now, honestly, how many people have the same password for multiple things? Okay, yeah. Try to switch those up. If one of your accounts becomes compromised and the bad guy knows of your other accounts, they're going to try that same password. And we have an investigation going on right now where that worked. He was able to get a hold of our victim's password, and he was able to do cryptocurrency fraud based on the password of the victim's email. So it's the same password he's using. So try to mix up those passwords. Okay, so there's your first tip of the day. But what we want to do is we really want to protect this sensitive information. Okay, now people often ask me, how does my identity get stolen? Most of the time, it's network intrusion. Okay, so your hackers, who are usually overseas, they're able to exploit these databases where your personal information is held, and they're able to extract that information. So you remember a few years ago, Equifax, the credit bureau, they got hacked? That was a score of the century, right? So this happens on a daily basis, and then as soon as they get your information, that goes out onto the dark web for sale. I have a case right now where I have about 200 victims I've identified off of a computer that we seized during a search warrant, and a lot of their information was coming off the dark web. Okay, so not much you can do about that, right? So everywhere you go, you got to give your name, date of birth, and social number, your doctor, your dentist, you name it. That's just another way to identify you, right? Unfortunately, it's out there. Okay, that's the bad news. But I'm going to show you how to keep your information locked up tight and no one can use it. Social engineering is another tactic. Okay, if somebody is tricking you by calling you, it's not always to try to trick you into loading up a gift card or trick you into sending them your credit card number over the phone, okay? Sometimes they're calling you just to get your full social security number. Perpetrators can spoof. There are spoofing apps for your phone. They can spoof any phone number they want to. For example, a few years ago, the Ann Arbor FBI field office, somebody was spoofing their phone number. And they were calling out people, threatening to arrest them if they don't pay them money. And the caller ID was the genuine phone number for the field office in Ann Arbor. So they do have that ability, all right, keep that in mind. So sometimes these phone calls could come in, they could pose as your doctor, saying that they want to confirm your social security number, okay? Important thing there is if anybody calls you, don't disclose any personal information ever. Now, if you call them, okay, then that's a different story. But we're talking about responding to incoming phone calls, okay? Now, I like using this picture here because back in, it's about 10 years ago, in the Cleveland area, there was a man that was in prison, okay, making cell phone calls from his jail cell. Yeah, he got a cell phone snuck into prison, right? And he knew all the lingo. And he knew all the words to trick the bank reps and to trick the victims into giving their credit card numbers. Then he had straw buyers out on the street buying high-end appliances from Home Depot and Lowe's and then selling them. So that turned out to be a multi-million-dollar fraud ring. And the guy was operating from his jail cell. So, yeah, so you're not allowed to have cell phones in prison. Well, you're not allowed to have narcotics either. They found their way in. All right, now here's if I can give you one take-home point today, this is most important. You can permanently freeze your credit profile with all 4 bureaus. And yes, there's 4 of them. A lot of people don't know about Innovis. Yeah. So you can freeze that totally free of charge. It doesn't affect your credit score, and you can unlock it whenever you want to. You'll get a PIN number when you freeze it. Don't lose that PIN, okay? Because if you lose it, you're going to have to jump through a couple extra hoops. That's going to take some time to get them to unlock it for you. So let's say, for example, you freeze with all 4 bureaus and you are interested in financing a vehicle. Okay, all you do is you ask them, well, which bureau are you going to check me through? And your auto dealer will say, well, we're going to check you through TransUnion. You just go back and you unlock TransUnion with your PIN number. You let them approve you for the loan, and then when you're done, you just go back and freeze it again. It's that simple. Years ago, when my wife and I did this, it cost us, it was like $30 per bureau. Now it's free. So that was just about 4 or 5 years ago. The legislators made it so that it made them make it that it's free of charge. Okay? So this is very important. That is like, have you ever heard of LifeLock? You see the commercials on TV for LifeLock, like credit monitoring services. Oftentimes those services just kind of, I've seen it work both ways. Sometimes they thwart identity theft, and sometimes they just notify you that you've just been victimized, okay? Freezing your credit with all 4 bureaus, that is 100% certain that nobody can open up an account with a creditor, not even you, unless you thought. So for example, let's say somebody just purchased your name, date of birth, and social number off the dark web, okay? Now they're going to go to Capital One and try to open up a credit card in your name. They're not going to be able to do it. Okay, now let's move on to credit card fraud. So this is kind of a beast of a little different nature. Okay, now they're not using your name, date of birth, and social number. They're just flat out stealing your credit card number, okay? Now, there's literally a million different ways you can steal somebody's credit card. I'm going to go over the most popular ones here, but what's important, remember a few years ago when the EMV chip first got implemented here in Michigan? That's a good thing. Okay, however, you'll see in the back of your cards, you still have that magnetic strip on your card. Why is that so? We have the EMV chip now. Why do we need a magnetic strip? You ever have one fail yet? You put your chip in and it doesn't read it? That's a secondary measure right there. So that's the backup if your chip fails. So your credit card number is still encoded on that magnetic strip on the back of your card. That's how they're still getting your information. They can't get it off of that chip. That chip is encrypted, and you have to have special software to use it. That magnetic strip, you just can buy a swiper off of Amazon, and you can get that information off of there, okay? But the chip, it's a good thing. It really is. It has really reduced credit card fraud substantially. However, because of the chip, a lot of the bad guys have gone back to good old-fashioned identity theft. So it's kind of a balancing act, I guess. Here's one way of stealing it. So the magnetic strip, it can be read by these little handheld skimmers. Okay, now it's very good that I don't hand my credit card to anybody anymore. You notice that we don't do that anymore. Everything is self. The terminals are all self, help yourself. A few years ago, we had a young man up at the mall at the food court. He had one of these pocket skimmers, and he was swiping people's cards as they were giving it to him. We had another case where a drive-through worker at a McDonald's in Oak Park was also doing this as well. So whenever your credit card leaves your possession for a moment of time, there is a possibility that they could skim it, okay, with a little handheld reader if it fits really discreetly in your pocket. The handheld readers, They're still out there. We don't really see it that often, but whenever I use the drive-through, I always try to use cash. I really don't like handing somebody my credit card and having them take it out of my sight for a little bit, okay? But for the most part, if you're using your credit card company's not going to hold you to that fraudulent transaction, okay? So that's good. Another way too, and this is still happening, is your ATM skimmers. So they'll put this one here in particular as an overlay skimmer, okay? So that goes right over the top of the ATM slot that you're putting your card in, okay? So it's not reading the chip. What it's reading is your magnetic strip when you pull it out, okay? I think what we're going to see in the next few years, and this is, I do believe this is in development stage, is that ATMs are probably going to switch to a sideways entry with your credit card or your debit card. So that way it's only going to read the chip, and then when you pull it out, there's no way it can swipe that magnetic strip. Does that make sense? So if it goes in sideways. So I think we'll see that pretty soon. So that's an overlay skimmer. Here's one we had a few summers ago. This is at a bank. If you're familiar with the Royal Oak area, there's a giant cemetery right there on Woodward Avenue. This is right across the street from there. So what's better than just getting somebody's debit card number? You get their PIN number to go with it, you can do a lot of damage now. So what these people were doing, and this is broad daylight, you can see this is daytime. They install the skimmers, and then what you see, what I'm holding on to in the picture, that is a pinhole camera that they set up right above the pin pad. So now they're able to capture your debit card number at the ATM. They record you putting in your PIN number. Then they take those counterfeit cards that they make, they head out to California, and that's where they do all their withdrawals. Why do you think they did that? How much can we pull out of an ATM here in Michigan? You go out to California, I think you can pull out like 2,000. So they go out there and make the big bucks with it. Now this is a different kind of skimmer, unfortunately, for us. So when I go to an ATM machine, before I put my card in, I always give the slot a nice tug. I just pull on it a little bit. Because if there's a skimmer on there, it's going to pop right off. Okay. Now unfortunately, this is called a deep insert skimmer. So that's a very thin piece of metal, thinner than a Slim Jim that we use to open up your cars when you lock your keys out, right? That little black thing at the bottom there, that is reading your magnetic strip on the back of your card when you pull it out. Now, I'm kind of kicking myself. Before the technician came out to remove the skimmer, I should have put my own card in there because I knew my card was going to be safe because we're seizing the evidence. But I wanted to see what that would feel like because apparently people had no idea that was in there because we recovered a lot of card numbers off of this device. Moving on to gas pump skimming. You would think this would be a rural problem, like way out in the country where gas stations close. Well, this happens right here in the greater metro area. This one in particular, this was on Telegraph Road over by north of, I think, Maple, a little bit north of there, I think. So unfortunately, you will have no idea that this is inside of a gas pump because you can't see it. Now, you had mentioned a security tape. Yeah, pay attention next time you fill up. Look for that security tape. Yeah, because you know why? That's a universal key that opens up all gas pumps. So it's really easy to get a hold of that master key, go around and install those. And what happens is your credit card goes out to merchant services for payment, but as it goes out, that little flash drive right there is capturing your credit card number. Okay. Me personally, I get my fuel at Costco. I've never heard of this ever happening to Costco. And if I do have to get it, there's nothing wrong with going inside and just paying at the terminal. Okay? And then if you do use your credit card at a gas pump, just pay attention to your credit card statement. Okay? And just like identity theft, a great deal of your credit card information is also harvested by hackers, okay, your network intrusions. Now, we only hear about the big ones. Like, remember Target was a really big one. My wife lives at Target, so when this breach happened, our bank, they didn't even wait. They just canceled her card, gave us a new credit card. Home Depot was another big one. This happens daily, okay? It's just the news only reports on the really big ones, okay? Because that's newsworthy, right? So here's a take-home point for this. Credit card companies are not going to hold you to that fraudulent transaction made on your credit card if it becomes compromised, okay? But you have to check it and report it in a certain amount of time. Most credit card companies, that's about 90 days. Okay, it's all in the fine print that you sign up for. Okay, so what I do is I pay my credit card every 2 weeks. And then every 2 weeks when I'm going in to pay it, I look at my statement online and I check it line by line. And I often text my wife, is this you? Okay, that was you, good, okay. I have had a case where a woman had her credit card compromised. They made a lot of transactions. She didn't catch it in time because it's her business credit card, and the credit card company held her to it. They wouldn't, because it was her responsibility to report it, okay? So please check over your statements. Debit cards, I highly recommend people only use debit cards at the ATM machine to pull out money. Really not a big fan of using those at retailers, because if it does become compromised, that's money that's coming out of your bank in real time, right? And it might take the bank 7 to 10 days to get that money back to you after they do their investigation. So I really highly suggest using your debit cards just for the ATM machine. All right. Now, because of the EMV chip in the credit cards, not only did identity theft increase, but check fraud increase as well, okay? So with checks, it's really simple. All you need is a blank check stock. You can get blank check stock anywhere. You can go to Office Max. You can order online through Amazon. A lot of small businesses print their own checks, right? You get your check writing software. Same thing, Office Max, Best Buy. You can buy check writing software online. And you don't even really need a fancy printer. You can just get a basic printer from any store. And there you go. You can start printing your own checks. It's really easy to do because all the information that you need to counterfeit a check is right there on your checks. We still write checks? Yeah, I do. I mean, I still write checks. And on the cover of our check, it has my name, it has my wife's name, and that's it. It doesn't have our address. It doesn't have our driver's license number. None of that information is on our checks. We just put our names on it. Unfortunately, your bank account number and your bank routing number is on the check. All right. So if your check becomes compromised, it's going to be really easy to counterfeit those. And now they have your bank number. So that's another fraud, that they can get a fake ID, pretend to be you, and go into the bank and try to remove money from your account. Now, a lot of banks, they're pretty savvy. A lot of them, if you take a check in, they do a really good job, because the banks are going to be the ones that are going to lose the money if they let that go through. However, take-home point for checks. If you send an outgoing check in the mail, okay, please don't put it in your mailbox with the steal me flag. Yes, that flag lets the mail carrier know to pick up your outgoing mail. It also lets bad guy know, come and steal me, please. We've had multiple, in our task force, we've had multiple investigations where we have crews that drive around suburban Detroit looking for mailboxes with the steal me flag up, and it's all they do all day long is they pick mail. And a lot of them were getting good outgoing checks, and they were counterfeiting them, okay? So please use the blue box over here on Novi Road, right? They do have ways of exploiting those as well, but that's kind of few and far between. Yeah, please use a blue box, a postal drop-off box. This is important too. Same thing with your credit card statement. Check your bank statement line by line often and look for those suspicious checks. Now, I do want to tell you guys how to quickly identify counterfeit money, because we're getting, especially here in Novi, we have a very large shopping area. We have a lot of counterfeit money being passed here. We always get, it never fails whenever we have a big expo where people are selling stuff, vendors, always get counterfeit passed over there. So for the most part, you're probably not going to get a $100 bill back and change, right? I mean, what are you going to break to get a $100 bill back and change, right? So mostly be suspicious of 50s and 20s, okay? If you get hundreds from your bank, I wouldn't worry about that because the banks run their bills through a counterfeit identifier. But when you're out in the general public and you get a 50 or 20 back, this is the easiest way to identify. So I don't have my little pointer. If you see in the bottom right-hand corner, see that 50? This is true for 10s, 20s, and 50s. That number on the bottom right-hand corner is color shifting ink. Okay? You see how it's two-tone there? On the left, it's like copper and it's green. So if you take a bill, I single income, family of 7, I have 5 kids, I haven't seen a $50 bill in years, right? But if anybody has one on you, by all means, pull it out, take the bill, and you just tilt it from side to side real quick. And you'll see that color shifting ink, it'll go from copper to green, back and forth. The counterfeiters do not have the ability to print color shifting ink on their counterfeit bills, okay? That is the quickest and easiest way to identify counterfeit money, okay? Now, if counterfeit money wasn't bad enough, now we got this other stuff popping in. It's called prop money, right? Remember when Hollywood came here to Michigan several years ago? So when that Hollywood money, the motion picture money came with it for them to film movies here, it was pretty obvious. The $100 bills, it said in big bold print right on top, for motion picture purposes only. Now it's not as clearly posted. You'll see on here, it's in very small print. On the top left, it says replica. In the bottom left, it says, this note is not legal. The bottom right, by the 20, it says replica. That's very small print, and it could easily be overlooked by anybody, okay? Especially if you're in a hurry, getting change at the store. On the back, let's say somebody hands you a bill upside down, and now you're looking at the back of the bill. The only thing on the back of this $20 bill says, this is a replica. That's it. Everything else, that looks pretty authentic, right? So these are popping up. Be aware of this, okay? We get a lot of these bills being passed now. You can see it's got the Asian writing on the left-hand side. Now, people stamp. I've gotten money before where people stamp stuff on it. You know, they'll put like a little slogan on there, or maybe a political slogan or something. Yeah, I see it. So I could see how somebody would easily really not pay attention to that, just think it's some kind of writing stamped on there. What this money is over in Asia, they train their bankers on how to use American money. Okay, so this is just training money that they use in the banks. That's it. And somehow it found its way into our circulation. And this gets passed a lot too. You'll see in the back, same thing. Of course, you got the dotted lines going through over there, but over there, that's it. People could easily overlook that and just think that somebody like stamped, you know, something on the bill. Okay. You guys got your taxes done yet? No? It's tax time, right? Okay, so if you ever file your taxes and you get, and I love that email because I do TurboTax, I file it online, and you get that email, it says it's been accepted by the federal and it's been accepted by the state. That's good news, right? If you ever get denied and it says you've already filed, that's because somebody filed in your name and they're now going to get a fake return, okay, designated to a bank account that they're fooling somebody else to accept the money for. So if you ever have this happen to you, don't be so worried about the IRS portion of it. They'll straighten that out. You'll get that straightened out. But this is proof positive that your identity has been compromised, and you need to lock and freeze your profile with the credit bureaus as soon as possible. okay? And then pull a free credit report. You can get one for free every year. Pull a credit report first and look over it. See if anybody opened up any new accounts in your name, okay? All right, let's go over a few scams. Pretty sure you're going to recognize some of these. I have a warrant for your arrest. You must pay me now over the phone or agents are coming to arrest you. Right? This is across all age spectrums, okay? I've had young college graduates in their early 20s fall for this. We had one young lady, she sat at the 52-1 District Court while they're giving her instructions over the phone on where to go load up gift cards because she thought she was going to be arrested if she doesn't do this. Okay? Nobody, federal, state, local, nobody is going to request payment over the phone. Okay? My mom and dad just got this call last week. They just texted me. It's me, your grandson. I've been arrested and I need bail money. The police said you can load a gift card and give the numbers over the phone. The funny thing is my mom was telling me, she says they live down by the bottom of the state by Coldwater, and she said the phone number came from 517-639, which is the same beginning of theirs, and then so she figured it was a local call. And I was like, no, they can spoof any phone number they want to.
I have got a phone call from my own phone number. Because my own phone number was on the phone as coming in.
Yep. So it can, any number they want to, they can spoof it. So be suspicious for incoming calls. Someone said that happened to you. And my grandkids don't call me grandma. They call me Nana. Bye-bye. Yeah. These gain in popularity. They kind of come and go, but these are your romance scams. Okay. Absolutely nothing wrong with these online dating sites. Okay, my brother met his wife through an online dating site. However, there are always people that are trying to exploit that, pretending that they love you and they're gonna get married someday, and now once they build that trust, they build that rapport, now they're gonna ask you to accept money into your bank account. Because I'm in big trouble. I'm stuck in customs in England, and they found diamonds that I didn't say I had. I got to pay money on it. I can't leave until Can you please accept this money, this wire transfer into your bank account for me? Oh, okay. All right. What's happening there is they're money laundering. You're stealing money from other people, and they're using you and your bank account to move it. Okay. Some romance scams lead to people sending out money to the tune of over $100,000 to people that they've never met, okay? Because they're so convinced that this is a person that they're in love with and that they're gonna get married soon, okay? So these kind of come and go. Thankfully, we haven't had one in a little while. Anybody on social media at all? Yeah, social media is great. It's fun. It's a great way to keep up with people. So every single social media app has a direct messaging capability. So we receive text messages on our phones, right? So any one of these apps, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, you can also send text messages through that application. And what the bad guy does here is they create an account that looks identical to an account of somebody that you are friends with on social media. Then they contact you through the direct messaging for that application and trick you out of money, okay? So if you're on social media, just be aware of incoming messages from your friends, especially when they ask for money, right? No utility worker can accept any money from you at your house, okay? They just can't. They're not allowed to. So if somebody comes to your house and threatens to cut off your electricity, don't pay them because they can't accept money. Now, a lot of our small businesses here in Novi, like your little shops in the plazas, that's who they like to target the most. They will call them on a Saturday and threaten to shut off their power unless they pay over the phone right now. And what do? They can't call DTE on a Saturday because who's going to answer, right? So a lot of the small businesses fall for this trick as well, okay? So just keep in mind, though, if someone ever comes to your door, they cannot accept money, okay? Emails. Here's what's important about emails. If you have a suspicious email come in, it's not a problem to receive the email and read it, okay? What is a problem is if you click on a hyperlink inside of the email that takes you to a website, or if you open up an attachment inside that email. That is what might unleash a virus on your computer, okay? So kind of like phone spoofing, they do have the ability to spoof emails, kind of, to make it look like it's somebody that you know. So if you are ever in doubt that the incoming email is at all suspicious, just don't click on any attachments, and then don't click on a hyperlink to take you out to a website. Here is an example of when it's possible it could be a virus, or it is just possible that what you just opened up is just a pop-up window for them to scare you, thinking that your computer is infected and that you have to call that number. My aunt did, and they got 2 credit cards from her. I said, call your banks. This is after hours. Call your banks in the morning. Double check, whatever she did. They didn't get any money. So I says, while you were doing this, did they see your computer? Did they have any kind of screen sharing going on? She's like, yes, they did. Okay, that's my next thing. So there are these applications. It's called screen sharing. Here's just one example of it. It's called TeamViewer. This allows the bad guy to see what is going on your computer, and it actually gives them the ability to remotely access your computer. Okay, so I asked my aunt, I says, did they have you do anything with this? She's like, yeah, I logged into my bank account online. She went to her bank the next day. They got her a new account number, a new savings number, didn't lose any money. But that's not always the case. Usually when someone uses a screen sharing application like this, usually they got enough to run amok with your information, okay? So be very, very suspicious of anybody who's trying to convince you to use some kind of screen sharing application. All right. Well, I got to run. I appreciate you coming out. Thank you.